This wedding was an assignment for my Religion 2 class in Catholic school.
This one's wife. Grifters garner grift. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. What do you do when you're too lazy to keep creating content by knuckling down and writing something interesting for a podcast? What do you do when you're too lazy to actually pursue a political career and you expect that it ought to be handed to you? What do you do if you believe that you're a fashion icon but nobody else does? What do you do if your behaviours become so problematic, resulting in you being so disliked, that major fashion houses and cosmetic giants have no interest whatsoever in partnering with you? What do you do if you try to inveigle your way into the A-list with your unkind gaze and sharpened elbows, only to find that the A-list turns around and says Foxtrot Oscar? What do you do if you decide that you're going to create a lifestyle brand, but all that it does is involve ridicule and people laughing at your jam scam? What do you do if you try to change a centuries-old institution and found that it didn't want to be changed in the way that you thought that it ought to be changed? Well, if you were posed with all of the dilemmas that I've just mentioned, the easiest thing to do is to revert to the thing that you were originally meant to be doing, namely, go around meeting people. Yes, that is the new grift that this one's wife has come up with. Go to places, pretend to be interested in them, and get publicity. Get publicity with the expectation that those people will then be motivated to buy cheap tat from you and that you'll be able to create some content which you can flog to Netflix. That is the grand design of this one's wife. A woman so spectacularly unsuccessful that she's essentially reverted to doing the very thing that she said that she didn't enjoy doing, which is going around different countries and meeting people, turning up at places, giving speeches, and meeting people. Except this time, she's expecting to be paid for it and ensuring that she does get paid for it. As you know, this one's wife married into the royal family and was rather alarmed to find that the royal family wouldn't do what she wanted. Unsurprisingly, an institution that had stood for centuries explained that there are certain ways we do things, which doesn't mean immediately pandering to all of your ideas. Furthermore, you've made no effort to understand this institution or the culture of the country that you've moved to, and instead, in your high-handed manner and arrogant fashion, have sought to impose your views and ideals on everybody else. Thus, she had a baby huff. Her narcissism caused her to run away. She retreated, asserting control by withdrawal, although she portrayed it for the purposes of facade management as being the victim, that she was bullied out of Britain by a spiteful populace, a hateful press, and the grey suits at Buckingham Palace not providing her with support when she was suicidal. All of that's bunkum. Ultimately, she tried to change people, and they decided that they didn't want her input. Thus, unable to assert control directly or indirectly, she was forced into retreat. No matter, she believed that with her newfound infamy, or fame as she would see it, she would be able to bring in the dollars by being a duchess overseas. And she certainly did begin to bring in the dollars, but thereafter they dried up because people realised that she's a one-trick pony, or a one-trick phony, namely, bleat about victimhood and smear the royal family. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. People grew tired of that. They also realised that she hasn't got any talent or any original thoughts. The United Kingdom grew sick of her. The United States has grown sick of her. So her latest wheeze is to find an African country, claim to have some sort of affiliation to them, ensure that they then send some money to her so that she will then attend, on a private tour, which he makes it seem as if they're actually receiving royalty. It's quite clear that those in Nigeria thought that this was a royal tour. They didn't realise that it was private. It's clear that the individuals that they met were all about making themselves look good in terms of meeting British royalty, even though, of course, it wasn't a formal royal tour. They don't care. It looked like one, and that's all that mattered to them. And accordingly, although there was plenty of criticism and failure associated with that royal tour, this one's wife will have got paid. She'll have got plenty of fuel from it. She met plenty of people. There was plenty of press coverage. Mies and Harriman took the snaps, and there'll have been plenty of footage generated for Netflix, which might unlock another tranche of money. Accordingly, that particular grift seemed to work. So guess what? She's going to go and do it again. And this time, she selected Ghana as the unfortunate recipients of her living saint status. Sarah Teta writes in the Mirror, Prince Harry and this one's wife could be invited to Ghana after their triumph on their high-profile trip to Nigeria, according to sources. The West African country's officials and leading icons are keen for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex to visit after their success in the neighbouring country Nigeria, sources exclusively tell the Mirror. Insiders say the country's leading big wigs and artistic influencers are keen for the Sussexes to fly to Accra, the capital of Ghana, that was so loved by Harry's late grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, and they will pull out all the stops to make them feel at home. Now, interestingly, we don't hear from the leading big wigs, we don't hear from the country's officials, we don't hear from their leading icons or their artistic influencers. Nobody's actually quoted as saying, yes, we would love for the Sussexes to come here. Or, oh yes, we would like to invite some people from the West to help us with our mental health problems. Wonderful. How much do they want? No quotations whatsoever, just sources that are quoted. And here's another source which says, there is already a lot of talk and excitement in Ghana. Everyone is so keen for Harry and this one's wife to come and experience the great culture and warmth. Several top names have already visited Ghana in recent years, from Ed Sheeran, talented musician, Naomi Campbell, beautiful woman and model, One Direction's Liam Payne, musician, Idris Elba, actor, who DJ'd at Harry and this one's wife's wedding, is a regular too. He is part Ghanaian and loves spending time back home. Well, I'm sure that all of those people have been welcomed to Ghana because they actually have something to offer. The source continued, Harry certainly won't be short of people to show him around, and they will certainly roll out the red carpet for him, drafting in some of the finest Afrobeat performers to welcome him and his family. So perhaps it's only a matter of time before Harry and this one's wife come out and sample the famous jollof rice. Now, to my mind, given that there's not one Ghanaian who's actually said, I'm willing to go on record and say, yes, come to Ghana, this is quite simply the PR machine of the Sussexes who've stuck a pin in Africa and thought, let's go to Ghana next. Let's do Nigeria 2.0. Let's get the Ghanaians sending some money to the Sussexes. They'll turn up. They'll wander around, explain to people that you need to check in on one another and it's okay to not be okay. That doesn't matter. That it's fatuous and vacuous. After all, this one's wife can wander around wearing some skimpy clothing, and Harry can talk about how you all need to check in on one another. That's going to deal with the existing fiscal and debt vulnerabilities. It's going to ensure that the constrained access to international markets that Ghana currently experiences are no longer going to be problematic. It's going to ensure that those limited domestic financing options that Ghana experiences become lifted. The fact is that although Ghana is in debt distress and public debt is unsustainable, the fact is that the fiscal consolidation programme that this one's wife will undoubtedly roll out for them will enable the fostering of economic stability and resilience. The pace of economic growth, which decelerated last year and is projected to remain weak this year, will surely be overturned by the input of Prince Harry going to Ghana and telling them how a business should be run. The fact is that Ghana has macroeconomic crises and debt distress, and this is worsening poverty levels and living standards. International poverty rate is 31.4% in 2023, which was a worsening by 4 percentage points on the previous year. That's all data provided by the World Bank in Ghana. So what they actually need, of course, is two grifting Westerners to turn up, spout some nonsense for a fee, and then piss off again. Yes, that's precisely what is required for Ghana. But what this smacks of, to me, is this one's wife thinks Nigeria was a success. Let's rinse and repeat and go to a different African country. Harry, let's go to Ghana. They'll love us there. She stuck a pin in a map of Africa and therefore has told the PR people, get Ghana to invite us. And thus, we're told that the leading icons, the country's officials, their artistic influencers, and the country's leading bigwigs, although none of them are named at all, are keen for the Sussexes to go to Ghana. This is simply another attempt at manifestation by the Duchess of Delusion, attempting to perpetuate the grift on another African country that can ill afford it, once again demonstrating her self-absorption, her lack of emotional empathy, and the fact that she's an utterly deluded narcissist. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.